In the quiet, unassuming town of Cedar Grove, something wasn't right. It started small, with a series of seemingly unrelated break-ins. No forced entry, just valuable items vanishing from homes that were supposedly locked tight. The local police were stumped. They chalked it up to a particularly clever cat burglar, someone who knew how to pick locks with surgical precision. But Detective Isabella Rossi, a recent transfer from the big city, felt a different kind of chill in the air. This wasn't just about theft. It was too clean, too calculated. Rossi was known for her relentless attention to detail, a trait her colleagues sometimes called obsessive. She began where everyone else had left off, re-interviewing the victims. Instead of asking what was stolen, she asked what *WASN saying no. Tolen. An expensive laptop left behind? A diamond necklace ignored? This wasn't a smash and grab. The thieves were looking for something specific. Her first breakthrough came from an elderly woman, Mrs. Gable, who mentioned her antique key collection had been disturbed. Nothing was taken, but one specific ornate brass key was moved from its display case. It was a key to a long-defunct local bank vault. Why would anyone be interested in that? This one odd detail sent Rossi down a rabbit hole of local history. She spent days in the dusty town archives, poring over old blueprints and records. She discovered that the Cedar Grove Bank, which had closed its doors 50 years ago, had a unique security system. It required 2 keys to open its main vault, one held by the bank manager, and another, a fail-safe key, held by a designated town elder. Mrs. Gable's late husband had been one of those elders. The key she had was a piece of history, or so she thought. Now, Rossi had a theory, a wild one, but it was all she had. The burglars weren't random. They were targeting the descendants of the original key holders. She cross-referenced the list of break-ins with the old bank's employee and elder. Records. Bingo. Every single victim was related to someone who had been entrusted with a vault key decades ago. The burglars weren't stealing jewels. They were hunting for keys, and they had almost all of them. The problem was, the old bank building was now a trendy coffee shop called the Daily Grind. The vault was still there, sealed behind a wall in the basement, a quirky piece of town lore the owners loved to talk about. But what could possibly be inside that was worth orchestrating such an elaborate multi-year heist? Rossi suspected it wasn't gold or cash. Those would have been cleared out when the bank closed. It had to be something else, something hidden and forgotten. Rossi needed to get ahead of the criminals. She identified the last remaining descendant of a key holder, a young musician named Leo, who had just inherited his grandfather's house. She approached him not as a cop, but as a history enthusiast, explained her theory, and Leo, initially skeptical, remembered his grandfather's stories about the old bank. Together, they searched the house and found it, tucked away in a false-bottom drawer, a heavy iron key, identical in design to the one from Mrs. Gable's collection. Rossi knew the criminals would be coming for Leo next. Instead of waiting for them to make a move, she decided to set a trap. She leaked a fake news story in the local paper about a historical society event, planned to open the old bank vault at the Daily Grind. She knew the criminals wouldn't risk a public spectacle. They would have to act fast before the event. The stakeout was tense. Rossi and her team hid in a van across the street from the coffee shop, watching and waiting. For 2 nights, nothing. Rossi started to doubt herself. Had she miscalculated? Was this all a wild goose chase? Then, on the 3rd night, a plain-looking maintenance van pulled up. 2 men in janitor uniforms got out and, using a set of keys, let themselves into the coffee shop after hours. They were pros, moving with silent efficiency. Rossi's team swarmed in. The 2 men were caught completely by surprise in the basement, fumbling with a collection of antique keys in front of the old vault door. They weren't hardened thugs. They were a disgraced history professor and his graduate assistant. Under interrogation, the whole story came tumbling out. Professor Albright, the mastermind, had stumbled upon a diary of the bank's founder while researching a book. The diary revealed that the founder, a notorious eccentric, had hidden his most prized possession in the vault before the bank went under. It wasn't money. It was a complete collection of original, signed first-edition novels by his favorite authors, a collection so rare it was considered priceless, worth tens of millions to the right collector. Albright, deep in debt and bitter about his stalled career, saw this as his golden ticket. He spent years meticulously planning the heist. He identified the keyholder's descendants and groomed his assistant to carry out the no-trace burglaries, patiently collecting the keys one by one. They were just one key Aurelio's key from finally opening the vault and claiming their treasure. The case was a sensation. It wasn't just a story about a clever detective foiling a crime. It was a story about how the secrets of the past can ripple into the present in the most unexpected ways. Detective Rossi was hailed as a hero, not just for her sharp mind, but for her ability to see the connections that everyone else had missed. She proved that sometimes the most complex puzzles aren't solved with high-tech gadgets.